So let's begin by just sitting nice and tall. Close the eyes. And take a few moments paying attention to the breath, paying attention to yourself, paying attention to how you feel, and allowing that attention to be neutral, so there's no judgment. There's no, darn, I wish I felt another way. There's no, wow, I really like the way I feel right now. There's just neutrality, completely neutral. And breathing in and out. And just allowing that sense of neutralness to stay with you. And explore the possibility that the more you free yourself from judgmentalism and expectation, the more fertile the ground within yourself to grow joy, happiness, connection, purpose, and unity. And placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. And just allowing yourself to be curious about where your thoughts, feelings, and intentions take you. Together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. And bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face to center, release the hands. So I think today we're going to talk a little bit about curiosity. We'll talk a little bit about curiosity, a little bit about consciousness, and a little bit about giving oneself permission to be curious. You know, I was married for many years, 24. And I was with my husband for about 28, almost 29 years total. And we made very good partners. We loved each other very dearly, very much. But that doesn't mean that our relationship was without challenge. Every relationship has challenge. And there came a point in time when Ed passed away that I thought to myself, I don't know. Some things don't seem to make sense right now. He's my go-to, you know. He's my BFF. He was the place that, you know, I went to after YTT sessions and was like, okay, how do we think that went? Yeah. He was my sounding board for ideas, thoughts, intentions, and inspirations. He was my sanity when I was a little insane. And he was my insanity when I was a little too sane. He was many, many things. And we really, in so many ways, functioned together synchronistically. And that's been my life for 28 years. So when I tell you I was very embedded in the habit of reflecting with him, talking with him, communicating with him, he was very much part of that process. That when he passed away, I recognized that a fear had set in. Wasn't it really a lack of trust? Maybe it was, in myself. But there was a tendency to just really wish that he was there to talk to. And then one day I was driving down Route 12. I was coming back to the ashram from somewhere. And I thought to myself, I don't know the direction that I want to go in this year. I really wish you were here to just talk to me. Because I have like these 2, maybe 3 directions I'd really like to go in. And I just, you're always so sane in the midst of all my ideas. How do I choose? How do we choose? And his voice came to me really clearly. And it said, you have a clear slate. Today, this moment, every moment after that, you have the ability now and always to do exactly what your heart tells you is right. And on some occasions, to investigate to do the things that it doesn't say are right. But it's your choice. And it's a freedom of choice that you have always cherished. Why aren't you exercising it? And I thought to myself, yeah, okay. As usual. Sanity to my insanity. But the concept is absolutely correct. How many moments in this life have you spent saying to yourself, if only I had the freedom to choose? If only I had the freedom to be happy in this moment. If only I had the freedom to be creative in this moment. If only I had the freedom to feel well in this moment. You do. You absolutely do. You have the freedom in this moment to be, to create, to do whatever you want to do. And you don't have to answer to anyone about it. It's between you, yourself, and that. And that includes friends, family, spouses, children. It includes the whole gamut, because you're not here to live the life that someone else has told you you need to live. You're here to live the life of your dharma. And that is not something that anyone else can point out to you. All they can do is share with you that what serves us best in trying and in opening to this path of dharmic living is curiosity. Like, what is our dharma? And coupled with curiosity, a willingness to do it. To just do it. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You'll reorient yourself again. I know, it's a pain in the butt. That's okay. Let it be a pain in the butt. Thank God you're here to reorient yourself. Right? Because what's the option? It's not a very pleasant one. So curiosity, well, how does curiosity play into like living a life of dharma, Well, you need to be curious about what dharma is. You could be curious about what that path would bring to you. You could be curious about your healing. You could be curious about the unknown. You could be curious about your own power, your own strength, your own vitality, your own radiance, your own connection, your own capacity, your own intelligence, your own intellect, your own creativity. There's so many things to be curious about. And yet we get stuck in one thought. I'm not enough. That's too beyond me. I can't go there. And that's BS. Because in any moment you can go there. In any moment you can. You can take joy in the discovery. You can have moments of like deep interest and intrigue about what is waiting for you. Like, That drive home was so profound. I had to pull the car over because I was crying so hard. And I thought to myself, wow, there's 10,000 ways to live this life. There's 100,000 ways. There's 1,000,000 ways. Why am I relegating myself to one? To a way that has doubt, to a way that is lined with, guilt, remorse. Certainly if there's things to feel remorseful over, then resolve them. But don't let that be the foundation that you're walking on for the rest of your life. My God, that's not what's wanted for you. That's not what's purposeful for you. Did you learn a lesson? Were you curious enough to learn the lesson? Were you curious enough to embrace the loss? Are you brave enough to open to the possibility? Curiosity is what allows us to become brave enough. And curiosity also has a little something to do with faith. Because curiosity is an interest and a willingness to look into something more deeply that you may not know very much about at all. And I'd suggest to you that none of us know a whole lot about that. We only think we do. So there's definitely a component of faith to allowing oneself to be curious. But I don't have any faith. Yeah, but that's a decision that you can change. I didn't have any faith at one point in my life either. I was angry. I was pissed. I got dealt a raw deal in this life. I was reliving my trauma over and over and over again. I was so mad. I would just want to destroy everything. I was self-sabotaging. I was self-destructive. I mean, you name it. I was it. And I always loved the mother. Always. From when I was a little child and I was told that she was second, that that's not where my focus should be. And I thought to myself, you're full of it. That's exactly where it is. I always loved Jesus Christ. I loved the concept. I loved the humanity. I loved the service. I loved the story. I loved the stations of the cross, although I couldn't really understand why we never saw him I get the stations, but why don't you have another station? And that's him feeding people, because that's what he said. He said, feed those who are hungry, serve others. He didn't say that life was just about carrying a cross. He said life is also about joy and love and unity. And I always loved the idea of vast consciousness. This essence that we cannot see unless we're willing to. And I always loved that. I was always in love with that. But my faith was not there. Even though I was in love, my faith wasn't there. You all know what that's like? To be in love and to have no faith in that love? I think everybody knows what that's like. And then one day I woke up, and I've had many moments in my life where I have had awakening moments, and I know exactly what they were, because it was like I got pushed straight forward, probably into another wall, but that's okay. And in a moment I thought to myself, I have no faith because I'm afraid. Because pain and hurt have been there so deeply in my childhood and in my teenage years, and they're very deeply in many ways until probably my early 20s, and then I just hurt myself. It was like, why let everybody else have the fun? I'll just do it myself. Yeah. And then I just said, what the hell's the matter with you? You are so embedded in this world You think you are this world. Have faith and find out what happens when you're just who you are. And I left everything. I left someone that I had been in a relationship with. It was not a good relationship. It was a very harmful relationship, very hurtful on both sides. I walked away. I walked away from my friends. I walked away from members of my family who were part of the trauma. I walked away from my job. I literally walked away from everything. And I disappeared. And some people might say, well, that was kind of cowardly. But I would say, actually, no. It was potentially the bravest thing I ever did in my life, next to survive my trauma. Because it was the only way that I could leave my trauma. It was the only way that I could put it where it belonged, was to walk the hell away from it. I had gone through years of counseling, years of discussing, talking it through, investigating feelings, coming to understand myself. And the only way that I could go to the next level was to leave behind me that which was hurting me. So I had to leave that version of myself behind. I didn't leave my family behind. I didn't leave, and it was only a part of my family, my stepfamily. I was leaving the part of me that was so embedded there behind, And I was allowing myself to be curious about who I could be without all that crap. And it wasn't easy because I just continued making mistakes all the way along the way. I traded in one self-destructive behavior for another, but I was paying attention. And I always was paying attention. Even when I was in the depths of low, I was still very much paying attention. And I was very much aware that it just wasn't time yet. And that there would come a moment when I would stand up and be who I'm meant to be. And that I just needed to hold on long enough until that moment arrived. And I started to become really curious about that. Curious in another way. I was always curious about it. I was always, even at the age of 6, 7, 8 years old, I always said to myself, what you're going through now is just going to make you stronger, because one day you're going to need that strength. So be strong. Survive now so you can thrive later. And I knew the truth of that. I knew the truth of it, even if I didn't understand the truth of it. So when I got to this pivotal point in my early 20s probably, I wanted to move into understanding. And I knew that in order to understand, I had to be curious. I had to be curious about what it meant to walk away from my old self and what it meant to investigate the potential that I carried. A potential that didn't have so much of my mother, so much of my stepfather, so much of my stepfamily, so much of my mistakes, so much of my self-destruction, so much of my self-hatred. I had to have a curiosity about who I was once I shed all those skins. And I continued counseling because, boy, that was a lifesaver. But I also knew when it was time for that to end, because it was a lifesaver, 10 years. And then it wasn't as necessary, only at times. And then it wasn't necessary, because the work there had been done, and continuing to stay there meant that I was not showing up someplace else. And to know that, I had to be curious enough about how I was feeling to listen to myself, to listen to the impulses that my heart was bringing forward. Because your heart tells you exactly where to be. It has never not told you where to be. It always tells you where to be. But you and I have been shut down to that in more moments than not. So part of the curiosity allows you to open back up to that impulse. We call it a spiritual impulse. It's an impulse to show up in one's own life in a way that is truly authentic and curious and faithful. Faithful in that something's going to happen. It will. I guarantee you that. Something will happen. I don't know what that something is. Neither do you. But it will happen. And it will either bring you into a deeper understanding or it'll not. But the only reason why you acquire deeper understanding or you don't has nothing to do with what's happening around you. It doesn't even have to do with what's happening to you. It has to do with how you are in a moment. Where are you allowing yourself to live, to reside, to be? What belief are you stuck in? And why are you stuck there? And can you draw, embrace the courage, the bravery to see things a different way? Can you recognize that everything smooths itself out, with or without you? That was big for me. In the process of becoming, permitting myself, allowing myself to enter into this state of curiosity, I had to accept the fact that everything smooths itself over with or without me. And that all my friends who were like, oh my God, you're better than a therapist. One of my friends actually bought me a little sticker for my refrigerator. And if you're listening, Sandy, I love you. She bought me this little sticker for my refrigerator, and it said, friends, good friends are better than paid therapy. Yeah. And I thought that was like, a huge, huge compliment. But here's the reality. How much of that did I buy into for other people, but not for myself? How much did I use showing up for others as an excuse for not showing up for me? Curiosity about my own life, my own potential went out the window. And I'm not sad that I showed up for other people. Of course you want to show up for other people, but you don't want to show up for other people in a way that stifles you, that stops you from investigating who it is you really are and what your dharmic path is here on this planet. Stop doing that, because that's the core of your suffering, is that you're turning your back on yourself for the sake of something that happened years ago or a year ago or a week ago. Yes, I lost my husband and it hurts like hell. I can't even talk about it sometimes without the tears coming. But it would be such a violation of the love that we had if I stay there. So instead, I have a little bag that carry my grief with me, and I investigate it as it's needed. And then little parts of it I put away until an appropriate time, a time when I feel I have the skill to deal with it. And in the meantime, I just say to him, because he's everywhere now, and I just say to him, I'm living. I am. I'm planning. I'm investigating. I'm exploring. I'm being curious about my own self, my own nature as a soloist. It's not easy. Even, it'd be so much nicer if he was sitting right here, even though he rarely said anything. He'd just sit there, maybe take a nap, And I would always say to him after the sessions, I'd be like, honey, if you're tired, why don't you just go take a nap? And he'd be like, no, I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not really sleeping. And I'd be like, prove it. And he would. And he'd be like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'd be like, okay, fine. And he would say, I won't close my eyes anymore. I said, no, close your eyes. Absolutely. And yes, there's a part of me that would give anything to have him sitting there again. But you know what happens if I get too caught up in that? Is that I can't be here. If I get so caught up in that, which happened 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, then I can't be here now. I have to be curious about what's here now. And there's a lot. Like, so much beauty, so much radiance, so much potential. And I need to be part of that, just like you need to be part of that in your own life and in your own way. Stop turning your back on yourself. You can love fiercely. You can miss fiercely. You can learn sincerely what it is to love and to grieve and to miss and to explore. But remember that everything before this moment prepared you for this moment. So don't deny this moment for the sake of what used to be. Because what used to be has only one purpose, and that is for you to be present now. Otherwise, your trauma really doesn't mean shit. That's the reality of it. Otherwise, your trauma is only a captor that keeps you captive in the past. But that's not what trauma is. Trauma is something that we learn from, that prepares us for today. And it doesn't prepare us for today so we can hate ourselves all the more effectively. It prepares us to open up to a higher reality today. Because you know what's necessary to open up to curiosity? What's necessary to open up to the potential of who you are is courage. And if you had courage, if you learned about your courage, if you learned about how brave you really are, how strong you really are because of your traumas from the past, then they serve their purpose. You can let them go now. Just be brave. But if you're still walking around saying, I'm a weakling, I can't do this, I'm not strong enough, I don't have faith in myself, I lack something, then you haven't learned. And you'll continue carrying that burden until you do. The moment that you know you are courageous enough, you'll be happy to put that shit down. No problem. You'll also put down the self-destructiveness. You'll also put down the self-hate, the judgment, the lack, the doubt. You'll put all those things away, at least temporarily, until you know, because we're always shifting and changing. But there will come a moment in time where you put that away because you understand that everything you've ever gained and everything you've ever lost is all part of a process of preparing you to be here now, to put all things away so that you could show up in your own life. And curiosity about what that life actually means is necessary. And courage to be curious is necessary. Because otherwise, it's just too easy to stay there. It's just too easy. You know, your friend calls you and it's like, hey, I'm going to Applebee's, want to come? And you're like, you know, we go to Applebee's all the time. I'm kind of bored of going there. Have you ever had something like that happen to you? Yeah. So your old self says, hey, let's go back there, shall we? Let's take some time right now away from the present moment and go back there. And why aren't you saying, yeah, you know, we go there often enough. I'm a little bored with that. Let's try something new. Let's be here now. Let's open up to this moment now. And the old self is like, no, I like the special. And you're like, no, let's try this for a change. And the old self is like, no. And the ego kicks in. And the ego says, I have more control back there. I can control you there. I don't know what the hell's over there. I can't control you over there. You might get excited about something. You might actually enjoy something. You might see something that inspires you, and I don't know what to do with that. So no, let's go back here. And if you just go quiet for a moment and listen to what the heart's impulse is saying, you'll know where to go. And it won't be backward. It won't. And with every step that you take, toward who you really are. Your curiosity will become alive. And you'll want to know what is waiting, what is present. And what is behind you won't have so much power. It's not going to go away. It just won't. But it'll just kind of be there. You know, like that shirt in the closet that you've been like, I got to donate that. You know, or the chair that you don't sit in anymore. Or the blanket that you don't wrap around you anymore because you found a much cuter one on sale at TJ Maxx and bought that instead. Does that make sense? Like, right? It's so easy to trade in an old blanket for a new one. We don't even think about the relevance of it. But we so enjoy the new blanket. We're like, oh, it's so cute. It's got my favorite colors. It's so cushy and soft. It makes me feel so comfortable. Don't you think that your true self will do that for you? Don't you think that your true self will cause you to feel comfort? Don't you think that your true self is made up of all your favorite things? And don't you think maybe, just maybe, your true self actually knows how to enjoy those things? Rather than collecting things for comfort only, the true self knows how to enjoy them so that they're not just crutches. They're actual healing tools. But again, you've got to be curious, courageous, and conscious. Conscious of the fact that there are things that every single one of us need to leave behind. The argument you had with your friend last week, the doubts that still come because you missed your line in a play. I don't know. I used to act. I used to be on stage, and that was like that was the most terrifying thing of everything. It was like, what if I forget my lines? So before you go out on stage, you just keep repeating them over and over and over and over again. And you go out there and it's like, and you stop breathing. You just stop breathing and you wait. And someone does the cue and you exhale the line. And it's either right or it's wrong, And sometimes when it's not right, it's actually better. Because then they got to think about how to, improv in that moment to get everything back to where it's supposed to be. So it becomes a banter of sorts. And it's fun and interesting once you let the fear go. And that's kind of like that in discovering your true self. You may not get it right all the time. What the heck does that mean? Yeah. So you'll just have some fun bantering back and forth with yourself until you come to a place where you understand how it feels to be aligned, how it feels to be who you are, really, without the perceptions of the mind playing their games. And then when you go to the Applebee's, you'll go because you want to go. When you buy a new blanket, you'll buy it because there's something else that you appreciate about it. But maybe you'll also find that there is some comfort to be had in the things that you've already got. Like the old blanket that you haven't used for a while. The one that did bring you many moments of comfort that you put to the side because you felt you didn't deserve that comfort. And maybe you can revisit that blanket now. And maybe you can sit with it wrapped around you like a child and allow the inner child to heal a little bit through something that is healthfully familiar, not unhealthfully familiar. Does that make sense? But consciousness is important because you got to know the difference. You know, you need to know when you're grasping at things that are addictive behaviors and that are just harmful to you in some way, shape, or form, versus truly comforting, truly growth-inspiring, truly eye-opening, truly present. And that requires you to be present. It just does. You can't wing that. You know, you can't just wing it. You'll just end up falling back into old tendencies over and over and over again. So you got to be paying attention. And it is a diligence. It's a diligence. It's tapas. That's what tapas is. Tapas is discipline. It's not cold, hard discipline. You know, I have so many yogi friends, and then sometimes they start talking about tapas, and they're like, oh. I'm like, no. Just be present. You want to know how to go into a handstand, pay attention to what you're not doing. And that'll tell you how to get there. But time after time, students will try to force it. They'll be like, no, I'm being disciplined. I'm going to do it. It's like, yeah, no, it's not going to work. The bird can fly because it has two wings. One is discipline and the other one is grace. If all the bird has is the discipline of the strength of the muscle of the wing, it won't lift off the ground. It's only because the other part of it is grace. The other part of it is allowance. The other part of it is softness. The other part of it is curiosity, investigation. The other part of it is the flow. Only one part of it is power. You know? No part of it is force. No part of it is force. Power and grace. Strength and compassion. Focus and resiliency. Steadfastness and flexibility. No part of it is force and no part of it is laziness. Because those will only get you back there somewhere. So curiosity, being curious about what could be, what is. And don't even worry about what could be. It's like, what is? Who am I? The beautiful, who am I? Right now, ask yourself that. Who am I? Who am I really? Right now. Oh, well, I'm a person who is insecure. No. Who am I really? That's just something I'm feeling right now. Who am I really? Who am I? Well, I'm someone who's interested in spirituality. No. That's something you're feeling right now. Who are you? Who am I really? I don't understand what you mean. I know. Because you haven't investigated it yet. Take the time to investigate it. You'll come up with some pretty interesting answers. Most of which are not who you really are. Most of which are just feelings. I feel interested. I feel angry. I feel confused. I feel frustrated. I feel happy. I feel joyful. Great. But who are you? Who are you really? Well, I'm a mom. I'm a spouse. No. That's a role you play. It's not who you really are. Who are you, really? I'm an injured person. I'm broken. No. That's a perspective you have of yourself. Who are you, really? We do a little thing. Did we do this in YTT? In your group, where you got a piece of paper? I'm positive, Bonnie, your group did it. And I said, you're going to take a piece of paper, and you're going to write down, I am, and every single thing you can think of, you're going to write down. And so it starts off with, basic things like, I'm a female, I'm a male, I'm a friend, I'm a lover, I'm a spouse, I'm a yoga teacher trainee, I'm a student, I'm an employee. Then it gets a little bit deeper after a while, and it goes into like, I'm someone's daughter, I'm someone who likes the color blue, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. And sometimes it gets really deep, and people are like, well, I'm broken, I'm a person who has a really hard time liking myself, and it goes on and on and on. And sometimes they fill up both sides of the page. Do you remember this?
If it happened more than a day ago.
Yeah.
Sure we did.
And did we do this with your group yet? No, okay. So then at the end of it, I say, okay, now, you can't be any of those things. Who are you? Huh? What? Yeah. You can't be the mother, the daughter, the son, the father, the lover, the spouse, the one who is injured, the one who is broken, the one who likes the color blue, the one who eats ice cream, the one who just became a vegetarian. You can't be any of those things now. Who are you? Without all those identifications, who are you really? You got to be pretty freaking curious to want to find that out, because now you're at a loss for words. You're at a loss for words to describe who you are. Where do you go? You got to be curious enough to go inside to the impulse of the heart and listen. And then you'll find out who you really are. And you won't quite be able to describe it. People come up all the time and they ask me these really interesting questions. They're like, are you awakened? I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know. It's not who I am. Well, who are you? I don't know. There's no words. Awakened is a word. It's just a word. What does it mean? Are you asleep? Sometimes, sure. I guess that must mean sometimes I'm also awakened, because you're always the opposite also. So sometimes we're asleep, sometimes we're awakened, sometimes we're ignorant, sometimes we're wise. Sometimes we're this, sometimes we're that. And if it's only sometimes, then it's not exactly who I am. Who I am is something that is constant and always. Wow. That's an epiphany. So who am I? There's no words. But there is a feeling. There is a sensation, there is an impulse, there is a peacefulness within the heart. That peacefulness is who I am. And it's not really peacefulness, but that's the closest that we can kind of come to it. I guess we could say shanti. Shanti is defined as peace, but it's a little different than that, really. It's like, I don't even know what English word would be adequate for shanti, or for purna, or, they say purna means fullness, completeness, and it does. But even those words aren't exactly full enough or complete enough. Shanti means peace. Sure, it does. And it also means harmony and balance and pure. But they don't really do shanti justice, because shanti is an impulse of the heart. It's like where you are when nothing is lacking. It's where you are when the fluctuations aren't driving you mad. It's where you are when you're not distracted, distressed, disordered, disturbed, when you're not dissed. That's who I am. And so some people would say, well, that fluctuates too, doesn't it? Nope, it doesn't. It's always waiting for you. Always, without exception. All you have to do is listen, and it's there. You have to compel your anger. You need to pull it to you. You got to be like, I want to be angry. I want to remember that. I'm going to remember that. You got to make that happen. It's like kind of like a power play. It's force. So just watch next time you get angry what happens. Anger is not something that is your baseline. Anger is something that you invite on in. It's like somebody does something and you're like, oh, you just pissed me off. Is that right? Have you ever said that before? You just pissed me off. You didn't say, I've been pissed off all along and you just made it possible for me to express that. No. What do we say? We say, you've disturbed my peace. You've made it possible for me to be pissed off. Of course, they haven't really done anything. What you've done is look for an excuse to get away from your peacefulness because the ego is not balanced. Does that make sense? Yeah. Your foundation, your baseline, your underlying everything is something like peace. It's what the Buddhists call nothingness. That could be a little depressing for some. Until you understand it. Because in the nothingness, there is everythingness. And in the everythingness, there is potential. And in the potential, you can be whoever you want to be and still be peaceful. And if someone pisses you off, you don't have to react to it. You can just be like, I'm going to stay with my baseline, or I'm going to dig a big hole I can fall into in the middle of my path. I'll stay with my baseline, thank you. I'll stay with the peace. You can deal with the pissed offedness. That's the word. But you have to be curious and present to what's happening and courageous enough. Because, you have a relationship with people, and your relationship is one that you all have someone in your life like this. I do too. They irk you on purpose. Because that's how they communicate with you. That's how they know you. Because you never introduced your real self to them. You only ever introduce the part of yourself that reacts to their crap. And so that's how they know you. So they're like, well, I want to interact with Liz today, so I'm going to get under her skin. Because I'm comfortable with that. I know how to do that. And I know what she'll do. So I'm real super comfortable with that. So people are going to react when you respond differently. And it's going to be very uncomfortable at first. So you need to have courage to show up with a different face. You need to have courage to show up in nothingness. You have to have courage to allow everything to have potential. And that other person is going to squirm, and they're going to egg you on even more, and they're going to be like, I can't relate to you anymore. Someone said that to me once. They came, it was somebody who I knew for my whole life. They came and they said, I just don't know you anymore. I don't feel like I can relate to you anymore. And I said, well, you probably never related to me to begin with. Because I was never present. Oh, yeah. Right? Because I was never really present. So you were never relating to me. But now we have this beautiful opportunity. We can relate to each other genuinely. We can come to know exactly who we are. And we can put all the pretenses behind us. Are you interested? I am. Well, that's scary crap. That's weird voodoo, yoga, mystical, crazy stuff. Okay, let me know when you're ready. It's just so true though, right? Yeah. So just be brave though, because they'll be back. They always come back. Because they're like, what did you mean? I'm having these weird things happening in my life right now. I can't really explain them. What do you do? And you just share with them. You just say, well, I don't know. This is what works for me. It may or may not work for you. but try. Be curious. Be courageous. Be present. And in the moments where it's really heavy, in the moments where you're like, I cannot breathe another breath. I've had those moments in the last 6 months where it's been so hard to breathe. And then I just remember I'm supposed to. It may be hard to, but I'm still supposed to. And when I'll know I'm not supposed to? Is when I don't anymore. Until then, I'm supposed to. So just breathe. Allow things to be. And when they're heavy, really, really heavy, then have some quiet time. Have some alone time. Cry. Cry. Put the pillow and the blanket over you and be like, do what you got to do. But don't get stuck there either, because that was the last moment that you're reacting to, not this one. You all know that, right? We're always reacting to the moment that just passed. We're not in this one. So I just felt uncomfortable, so I'm going to go stick my head in the sand for a few moments. Okay, but you're not feeling uncomfortable anymore. That has passed. What you're carrying with you is a memory of feeling uncomfortable, and that's what you're reacting to. That's what you are embraced in, is the memory. If you stub your toe on, you walk past the chair and you hit your knee into the chair, you're not reacting to hitting your knee into the chair because that's over now. What you're reacting to is the signal that the knee sent to the brain. That does take time to get there. It's a little bit of time, but it is time. And then the brain responds, and sends a message back out. And it literally takes a few seconds for you to react to what happened in the past. So then you can look at it and you can say, well, I'm not repeatedly banging my knee into the chair, So what I'm reacting to is an echo of what I felt then. And there may still be a sensation present, but it's not the same sensation. Being a trauma survivor, I can tell you, I used to have night terrors. I would be so uncomfortable that I would go over to a corner and sit there and wait for daylight. And what I was reacting to in those moments, which had a lot to do with night terrors and nightmare syndromes and things like this, was the past. There was nothing there except the past. So through counseling and through curiosity and through courageousness and through presence, I learned how to relate to the current moment rather than allow all of my reactions to be about the past. But you have to be willing to let the past go. You have to be willing to let it go. There's a beautiful quote we said in the SLC yesterday. It was, consciousness, maybe wisdom, is about having the courage to allow the thing to live that needs to live and allow the thing to die that needs to die. And I just decided, I'd really like to know what a good night's sleep feels like. So I'm going to learn how to relate to nighttime now. And now I sleep like a freaking rock. Not all the time. I do still have insomnia. And there's times the dreams come back, but they're nowhere near what they used to be. And in part, that's because consciousness is present. I'm present. And I say, no, that's the past. That's the past. I want to be present. I want to be here, now. And I know I've shared a lot of personal stuff today, but I just feel in certain moments that there are certain things that need to be shared. Not because I need to share my dirty laundry with you or whatever you want to call it, but because we all have situations in our life that we're healing from. And I don't know, maybe if you hear about what curiosity, courageousness, and consciousness have done for me, maybe it'll inspire you to investigate them a little bit more. You've investigated them already. Maybe you just didn't know you were doing it. Maybe you'll investigate a little bit more now. Take time. Take the time to open up to the possibility. Don't be afraid. Afraid will make you stuck. You can change everything in your life right now. Right now. And changing doesn't mean you have to walk away from everything either. You know? All you have to do is be who you are. Really who you are. Because, little secret, by being who you really are, everyone around you has no option except to change. Except to learn how to relate to you. Or not. And you can't control that. But what you can control is your own happiness, your own joy, your own sense of being, and the expression of your true self. Any questions, thoughts, reflections? No? Are we good? Yeah? Do you have a little something to think about?
Don't be all.
Just a little. Just remember the 3 C's. Curiosity, courage, and consciousness. You could even put compassion there, compassionate consciousness. The 4 C's. We'll do the 4 C's, like the 4 seasons. The 4 seasons. Yeah. So, curiosity, courage, compassion, and consciousness. They just go hand in hand with each other, you know? So if there's no questions, then I'm going to turn it over to Dayananda and beautiful Kirtan. But let's sit up nice and tall. We'll close our session. We'll bring it full circle. So closing the eyes. Visualize in your mind's eye yourself as a whole person. You're not sad. You're not happy, like joy, happy. You're not hitting rock bottom, and you're not escalating. You're not lethargic, and you're not highly passionate. You're simply present in a sweet joyfulness that allows you to thrive, to be present to the beauty, and to also be present to that which is not beautiful, in a way that allows you to honor all as sacred, all as purposeful, all as changing, and to honor yourself as you truly are. Placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. We'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face to center. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being present today. And I have a challenge for you. Do the work. And I have a request for you. And that is, These talks are posted up on YouTube and shared on Facebook. Share it with somebody who you think might benefit from it. And also like it. I don't really know what that does, but they say it does something. They said, Sudha, you need to ask everybody to like the talk so that it, I don't know, goes on the rating or something. Or it makes it more visible somehow. So if you like the talk, like the talk. But share it with somebody who you think might benefit from it. And if you're interested...
If you like it. But I already do.
Okay, let's say that differently then, shall we? Y'all know what I mean. You're social media people. And our catalog for 2020 retreats is out. We still have retreats in 2019, and we have 22 retreats at a minimum that we're doing in 2020. And the catalogs are now up on the front table. So feel free to take one and share one. Take one and share one. And then share another one. And just continue. It's all we can do. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.